Hey everybody, another video here for you today. I want to document another ancient America site, and I want to do this one before I forget about it again. I had a comment on my earlier video today that reminded me about this one. I looked into this about 10 days ago, totally slipped my mind. I'm not the most organized person, but today let's go down to Salt River Bay, St. Croix, Virgin Islands, right down here. Ancient America is pretty widespread. Right down here is the Salt River Bay National Historic Park. Ruins that go back 2,000 years. This is 1,500 miles from the Yucatan Peninsula. What else they find right down here? A Ballcourt, 1,500 miles away from the Yucatan coast, right down here. Here we are overlooking Salt River Bay, and there's a couple periods of history directly tied into this site. Let me just read a little bit of the history here. Salt River Bay National Historic Park and Ecological Preserve is a unit of the National Park Service on the island of St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It preserves upland watersheds, mangrove forests, marine environments that support threatened and endangered species. It also contains the Columbus Landing Site, a National Historic Landmark that is the only known site where members of Columbus expedition set foot on what is now the United States territory. The bay is also home to an ancient village right up here. Petroglyphs, stone belts, other artifacts were found, some stone carvings. I think it goes back at least 2,000 years. Let's take a look at this on Google Earth, and here you notice a large earthwork henge, and that would have been around the 2,000-year-old village, and that is common in Adena sites in Ohio and other places. You notice that, you can see it perfectly, still preserved pretty well. This village goes back at least 2,000 years. There's a little historical, probably museum up here on this hill, that's what I'm assuming. Large mound on the east side of the village. I'm sure that is a natural feature. No reason to doubt that, but right down here, it looks like they are building something right on the slope of that mound right there. That's just what it looks like from overhead. Or maybe I should say they were building something a long time ago, maybe here on this mound, this natural mound here. That's just the impression I get, but the ancient village right down here, still clearly noticeable. This giant earthwork going around it here. Here we are down in this parking lot, and this earthwork, get an idea of it here. It just goes, and it separates and goes and goes. And one article, they said this is a fort coming from around 400 years ago. And that's the same kind of nonsense that's written about some of the places in Ohio. These earthworks would have never been a fortress of any kind. These are ancient earthworks coming from 2,000 years ago, maybe. Here's a sign located right down here where I showed you on Google Earth. It says this site marks the only point on the United States territory where members of the crew of Christopher Columbus came ashore on a second voyage to the New World in November 1493. It also relates to the first recorded altercation between Europeans and the native people of the Western Hemisphere at a point on the other side of the bay known as the Cape of Arrows. The site on which you stand was a Native American village and ceremonial site and includes the site of the only known Ballcourt in the Lesser Antilles. Later, after the demise of the native population on St. Croix, an earthen fort was erected. And personally, I think that fort was there, built at least 2,000 years ago by the native population. What kind of a fort would that have been if you can just walk right over it? That seems a little silly to me. It says in 1788, a Danish customs house was built nearby to thwart smuggling, and during the 1920s, Danish archaeologists carried out extensive excavations on the prehistoric village. Here is Danish archaeologist Gudmund Hatt, who did archaeological work here in the 1920s. Here's a look at some of the excavation work he did here. I will leave more than a few links below, but here it says the West Indies before Columbus, Salt River Bay. Here's a look at some more excavations done in the 1920s here. It says Salt River Bay is on the north side of St. Croix. During the history of the island, it has been home to different indigenous settlements and the focus of numerous archaeological excavations. One of these was conducted in 1922-23 by Danish archaeologist Gudmund Hatt. Archaeologists call the prehistoric cultures pre-Columbian because they are from the time before Columbus's arrival in 1493, who happened to arrive on this very island. Here's a look at some more excavation work here done almost 100 years ago, some pottery found in layers here. Here's another look at the excavation work here done in 1922 and 1923. Things were found under the dirt here, some stone artifacts looks like with some design on them. You can see that, some pottery here. Here's another pic, posted a little crooked on this website, but this might be the Ballcourt that was found here. Now, if a Ballcourt was found here, what separates these people from the Olmec or the Mayans or people that grew out of that culture? But I find that very interesting. Really, the only thing that separates these people from the Olmec and the Mayans is a lot of salt water. It says there is no conclusive evidence how the Caribbean islands were populated, but there are strong indications that there was a lot of mobility and that migration took place in waves from the Amazon region, Central America, and the Andes. In the Columbian era, Caribbean islands were largely populated by two groups, the Taino to the west and the Caribe to the east. Salt River Bay had been populated by both groups. From 650 of the current era, the Taino took over the islands from the Ignieri, who were in turn expelled by the Carib in 1425. So there are names for these cultures, but if they had a Ballcourt here, it seems that maybe a long time ago, they were influenced by the same people who influenced the Mayans and the mound builders. Or maybe history just has to give a name to those people because they can't explain how the Mayans or Olmecs got all the way out here. But here's a stone carving, and that looks kind of Olmecish right there, the face at least. Here's one of the links I will leave below from 2015. St. Croix Archaeological Society receives 2,000-year-old artifacts. Here are some of the artifacts found at the site. Pretty simple stone tools here. And then in this pic, some pretty intricate facial carvings down on some small stones here. Stuff found at the site almost 100 years ago. I thought this is a very important one to add to my Ancient America series. What do we know about migration and early populations in the Americas, and how far was this spread? U.S. Virgin Islands seem to have indications of this very population that was on the American shores a long time ago, coming from ancient America. That is a video from St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, Earthworks, artifacts, a 2,000-year-old village. What do we really know about how this world was 2,000 years ago? But right down here, it seems populations were living that were influenced by the Olmecs and the Mayans, Ballcourts, similar imagery there. But I thought that was an important one to put on my Ancient America series. Hope you thought that was interesting. You all have a very safe day.